My name is Michael Walsh and I'm an Inspector with the Health and Safety Authority assigned to the Transport Safety Unit. Loads being carried in any vehicle, whether it be on a motorbike, car, van, lorry, truck or trailer, must be secured so that they cannot move or fall off or fall out of the vehicle. Loads must be secured even if the vehicle is only travelling a short distance or at a very low speed. In the construction sector, plant and machinery are considered to be high-risk loads due to their size and weight, because the consequences of load shift and load shed can be extremely serious. Loads that are not firmly anchored to the load bed can shift during transport. This can make them unsafe. Movement of the load will endanger, first of all, the driver if the load slides forward during the journey or shifts sideways, causing the driver to lose control of the vehicle. It also endangers other road users if the load shifts sideways or shifts backwards or falls off the vehicle. And lastly, shifting loads can endanger unloading personnel, because if the load has become unstable during the journey and it moves uncontrollably during the unloading. So what law applies to load securing? It's specifically covered by road traffic legislation, which requires that loads carried by vehicles must be properly secured at all times. An offence for a vehicle to be overloaded or to discharge material onto the public road. Occupational safety and health legislation also applies. Under the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act 2005, employers must ensure safe systems of work that are planned, performed and maintained for the securing and transporting of loads. They must ensure that drivers, loading and unloading staff are also provided with training, instruction, information about securing loads. Employers must ensure that adequate equipment is provided and maintained for securing loads. And employers must ensure that adequate plans and procedures are also in place in the event of an emergency, such as a load shifting. The law also requires that employers cooperate with each other. So where several parties are involved in the transporting of a load, for example, the driver may not be an employee of either the consignor or the consignee, there is a duty to coordinate the operation between all the parties so that clear responsibilities are laid down. The Health and Safety Authority, in conjunction with An Garda Síochána and the Road Safety Authority, have developed a number of load securing information sheets, such as this one here on the safe load securing of plant and machinery. These information sheets, as well as a host of other information and resources, are available on a dedicated website called loadsafe.ie. So the purpose of today is to enforce the message that with proper planning and proper equipment, loads can be securely and safely transported from one location to another. And we're here today at Gill's driving school to give a demonstration of how plant and machinery can be properly secured on the load bed.
First of all, the cargo securing is not new. It's here since the 1963 Road Traffic Act. Drivers who are out on the road generally think that maybe they have them tied down correctly, and they may have, but it's just to try and take that guessing out of it, just to show them exactly when the Road Safety Authority or the Health and Safety Authority or the Garda Síochána are out on road, what they're physically looking for. And we're here today to try and help you and demonstrate, to show you what exactly is required to be within the law. When that load is being delivered to site safely, the first person who's going to be stopped on the road is the actual driver. So he has to make sure, as part of his daily walk around checks, that that load is secured down correctly. Employer needs to make sure that he gives his drivers proper training with the proper equipment to be able to tie down the load correctly in accordance with the law. First of all, here we have a typical load. We have a low loader trailer and we have a track machine on top. So that's normally what would happen. The driver would be given this track machine and say to deliver that on site. The first weight that they want to find out about is the weight of the actual machine that they're bringing themselves. It should be wrote on it. If it's not wrote on it, you will always find it in the manual in the back. That's number one, to see what weight you're actually carrying. The second weight that you want to know about is the actual trailer itself, or the body of the vehicle, what capacity it has to carry and what weight it can carry as well. Generally, you will find for the truck and trailer, you will find it on if you open the passenger door, there is a marking there with regard to the weight capacity of the truck and the trailer itself. And then with the machine as well, there's also a plate on that one, the machine, and that will tell you the weight of the machine itself. There's a little bit of maths to see the amount of axles, for example, on the trailer itself. and where to load that machine specifically with regard to overloading axles and things like that. But you will find the weight of the truck's capacity in the trailer on the plate of the vehicle, and with the machine itself you'll find that on the plate of the machine. Most people, when they do tie down a load like this, they may put it across the tracks like this, and they're trying to get what we call frictional lashing, pulling it down. It's not. You have to try and stop that load going forward, and you have to try and stop that load going backwards. So it's not a frictional lashing through the tracks is not what's required here. You pull the machine in a direction. When you brake in your vehicle, 80% of your load will always try to go forward. You might say, why doesn't 100%? Because you have a certain amount of friction, okay, what we call this, the machine itself on the floor bed. So that certain amount of friction there. But when you brake, 80% of your load tries to go forward and 50% tries to go to either side and back. So the main thing you're trying to always do is stop your load going forward. I'm now going to demonstrate to you, show you where exactly you would tie down a machine and how you'd identify the tying down points in a machine for you. So what we're trying to do is, as I said earlier on, stop it going forward and stop it going back, and we're trying to stop it from lifting on the right hand side and from lifting on the left. So we're going to have to pull it crossways, diagonal, one from the other. That's stopping it lifting from the left and the right, and we're going to do the same at the front. We're going to cross it, stop it going, pulling it forward, and again lifting, going over and back. So all the four ways there has been opposed to stop movement. The chains for lifting and the chains for tying down are a little bit different. The chains for lifting, as you know, have to be certified on every 6 months basis. The chains for tying down do not. Once your chain for tying down has the tag on it, okay, to tell you which is the lashing capacity of that and the standard tension force and the grade of steel which is in it, that's all you need for tying down. They do not have to be tested after that for tying down, once they're in good condition and once the tag is still visible and easily to be seen. You can see a chain here. The chain looks perfect, okay, as you have both sides. The bangers look perfect, your chain looks perfect, but there's one problem on this one: you do not have a tag. So this cannot be read to show you the capacity of it. The banger itself it's wrote on the banger, but it's not, the tag is for the chain, it's what we're looking for, not on the banger. Often people, it's a question they ask, can they use a ratchet strap to tie down a machine? And the answer is yes, if it's capable of doing so. But generally it's not, okay, but it's on some of them it can. So if you read this ratchet strap, you'll see here it has what they call an LC. An LC is the lashing capacity, and it's always done in decannewtons, which is Dan. So you have 2000 decannewtons. So that has a lashing capacity, pulling it in a direction of up to 2 ton. So as we know, this machine here is 13 tons, so it's impossible. Here as well, you can see it has the standard hand force, that's SHF of 50 Dan, and this important one is STF, the standard tension force. So when you're tying something, as we said earlier on, frictionally from one side to the other, this is what you're looking for. So this lashing of 2000 Dan, now when you're tying from one side to the other, only can hold down 475 decannewtons, which is not even a half a ton. But it can, in a direction, pull. The maximum is up to 2 ton. The standard with regard to tying anything down frictionally is the standard 12195. 12195/2 is a polyester webbing, 12195/3 is an actual chain, and 12195/4 is with wire rope. And that's the standard with regard to tying anything down, and it gives you what we call the frictional forces and the amount of force that you need to tie something down frictionally. Once you have this blue label on it, that's what you're looking for, and you have it here on the strap and you also have it here on the ratchet. And sometimes people might think the colours of the straps make a difference. They don't. It's the label which is always blue, and that's what you're looking for. The one on the chain will be a steel tag, and that'll give you your LCs, which we spoke about, your lashing capacity, and your STF, the standard tension force that chain can be put under, but they're separate. Inside in the last excavator that we saw there was actual tying down points, and if we look at this one here ourselves, there's no actual tying down points on the excavator. Now what do we do? Where is the best place to tie it down? Because this is a machine, this has movement, so you have to oppose the 4 directions: forward, back, left and right. So what's the best way to do that? It's again by the same way which we did the other machine, but we're going to have to find out, is there a manual in this and does it tell you which way to do that? Yes, I do see there's a manual. There's an operator's manual. By looking at it here on the operator's manual, it's telling us to use this here as a tying down point, which we have here, and we have one the far side as well. And here on the blade, it's actually telling us we can use this as a tie down point as well. This one here is going to give you a little bit more friction, as I say, because it has rubber on the actual tracks in comparison to the steel with the other one. This machine as well, as we can see, is narrower. Okay, so we might be able to tie down this one a little bit more differently than we did with the other one. So what you can see first of all, where the box, it's tied, and it's tied to the chime of the body, which is okay as long as that's attached to the chassis. But the problem I see here, as you can see here Sean, we've left a vacancy, okay, and that vacancy is between here and the headboard. So we've tied this 4-ton box back a little bit from the headboard. So if this vehicle brakes quickly, that's leaving that space for that to move forward. We should try and put something in here like an intermediate headboard. What I mean by that could be used by a pallet, it could be used by blocks, it could be used by any sort of dunnage to stop that thing moving forward. But that's the first problem. The second problem is it's a 4-ton box. Yes, this has an LC of 4 ton, but that's pulling in a direction. But when we look at the standard tension, is only 400 kg. Because it says STF of 400. We would nearly need 9 of these straps to tie this down correctly. So what can we do to try and prevent putting more straps on? Well, we can increase what we call the friction. Rubber matting, if we put underneath this box, gives you a friction of 0.6. So make it in layman's terms, that's 60% of your load tied down without doing anything at all. So if your 60% of your 4-ton is now tied down by using frictional matting, you're going to reduce the amount of straps in which you need on that load. And that's just something maybe to educate people a little bit more. But the main problem we have here is that it's not up against the headboard, so that's allowing movement going forward, because I said 80% of that goes forward. If you see this one here, again, they're trying to create a frictional lashing, okay, of trying to pull it down. Yes, it works because the pipe itself is light enough, but a better way to do this is what we call a loop lashing, is going underneath the pipe and pulling it in this direction, and the same thing the far side and pulling it the far side. That's what we call a loop. But even though this looks rock solid, there is still a certain amount of movement of that pipe going forward and back if you braked quickly in an emergency, and that can still happen. So it might be tight, you might think, but that still can break in an emergency. If this again was up against an intermediate headboard to stop the initial force of anything going forward, that's the best way to try and stop that going forward. So the first thing, you're supposed to tie it to a lashing point, and the standard for that is EN 12640, and that should be stamped on the lashing point itself. If you don't have lashing points, as I said earlier on, you can tie to the chime of the body as long as that chime is attached to the chassis. If that's not possible to do that, if that chime isn't attached, you can actually attach to the chassis itself. And that's the strongest part of that vehicle, is actually the chassis, and there's absolutely no problem in tying to the chassis of a vehicle if you do not have any other lashing points available to you.